PodcastOne presents the Steve Austin Show Classics.
All right, gang, let's get this podcast going. I tell you what, man, it's been a rough day for me. The kid's having a hard time getting rolling here. Instead of firing on 8 cylinders, I think I'm hitting on 6. Had a couple cups of coffee, had my alpha brain, and still not running on 8 cylinders. But, that open was a little bit discombobulated. Some of those stories didn't roll off the tongue like I thought they would, but nonetheless, we're going to motor through and get things going here and answer some of the questions you guys sent in. But before we do that, there's one thing I didn't mention on that open is today's date as I record this podcast is 3/16/15, March the 16th, 3/16. So, man, I've gotten, about 3,000 or 4,000 tweets today saying, hey, happy Stone Cold Day or happy Steve Austin Day, whatever. I tell you what, I'm not the one that invented this holiday. I guess it's just kind of been bestowed upon me by you guys and gals. So, anyway, thanks for all the happy 3/16s. I always get a kick out of it. I don't make a big deal out of it, but it's fun to see all the tweets and all that stuff and all the support. So anyway, I appreciate everybody that watched me, doing all that stuff I did back in the day with the WWE. Yeah, I had a lot of fun doing it. Stone Cold Steve Austin. And man, I tell you what, going to work every day was a dream come true. So I had a good time back in, and glad you still remember. But anyway, I sent out a tweet on my Twitter account, Steve Austin BSR. Hey, if you got a question, send them on in to questions@steveaustinshow.com. Y'all sent me some questions, so I'm going to kick back here on my couch and answer a few of them for you. And this first question comes from Dallas over there in Detroit, Michigan, the Motor City. And he said, hey, Steve, what's your opinion on Shane O'Mac doing all those high-risk moves like jumping off the Titantron and other things? Why would he do this when he didn't need to and was worth all that money? Plus, do you think Shane will ever return to WWE? I liked when he went coast to coast on his dad. Swig a beer for the working man. Well, hey, Dallas, let's talk about what Shane O'Mac did. I think when he did all the high-risk stuff, the Titantron, all those crazy bumps, that was kind of his gimmick. I mean, not in the vein of a Mick Foley, because, Mick Foley could work his ass off. And, of course, he had been doing all those bumps for years and years and years. But I think it was kind of the wow factor that Shane brought to the table. And he could work, had a good working punch, and he could sure work. Not like an accomplished in-ring hand, but he could carry his part of the match. And that was a part of the allure of the attraction that he was going to be a part of. And it became his gimmick. And when you say he was worth all that money, it didn't matter if Shane wouldn't have had, a pot to piss in, or he was worth a lot of money with his stock or whatever, or just being part of the McMahon family. Shane was very hungry as a performer. And it was always fun to do business with that guy because he would go to the nth degree to do whatever it took just to make the people say wow, or to give them a big moment in a match that they could enjoy. And sometimes, when he was working heel, it was that big payoff bump. And sometimes, that's what he brought to the table. And his hunger to please the crowd was why he did that. It didn't make a damn what it was worth. That's the kind of performer that he was. And, of course, when you talk about that coast-to-coast thing, that's when Shane would get on one turnbuckle, position someone all the way across on the same side on the other turnbuckle, and that's a 20-foot jump. And he would jump and usually position that trash can right in front of someone's head and go coast to coast. And I'll tell you what, that's a hell of an athletic feat, and you got a hell of a lot of spring in your feet and your legs to be able to jump that far and execute that move and not kill the other guy. So he was an athletic guy, a ton of energy, a lot of heart, who wanted to entertain the fans and would break his back, his body to do so, and that's what he did. Will he ever return to the WWE? Remains to be seen. I got asked the other day, I was on the MMA Hour with Baz Rutten, how I thought, CM Punk would do in UFC on his first fight. And I'm like, to be determined. We don't know until it happens. And so with regards to Shane, we don't know until it happens. So we'll just sit around, and I wouldn't hold your breath. I don't anticipate him coming back. I think he's doing really well on his own. I think he's probably, on one hand, enjoyed his time away from the company, but I'm sure on one hand, me thinking out loud that he'd probably like to return, but I'm sure that would have to be under his terms, his conditions, and the way the landscape, the lay of the land is there currently with Triple H and Stephanie. Seemingly, the heir apparent to everything that is WWE. Who knows if that will ever happen? And I don't want to get too deep into their family matters. But, again, don't hold your breath on him returning. He was a great performer. He went out of his way to please the people. That's why he took those bumps. Hey, appreciate the email, Dallas. All right, let's move on to the next question. Happy 316 day, Steve. Hope it's a whoop-ass day in the best way. I know you, like many of us, was glad to see Macho Man Randy Savage is going to be inducted in the class of 2015 WWE Hall of Fame. My question is, of the old school, is there anyone you would like to see inducted that you feel never got the credit they deserve? I really hope the Freebirds make it soon. Gotta go, Dawn. Hey, Dawn, thanks for the email. And then she said, any word on Redneck Island? I don't know about Redneck Island. I haven't heard. But let's get back to the question there before you went to the PS. I tell you what, when you just say, you brought the fabulous Freebirds up. Yeah, the Freebirds got to go into the Hall of Fame. No ifs, ands, or buts. They're Hall of Fame members. And Dallas, Texas is going to be where WrestleMania is next year. So I think they go in Dallas. That was a territory for me that, I saw the most of them at there. I was at North Texas State University driving up there to the Sportatorium to watch them put on one hell of a show. And what a trio those guys were with Michael PSAs talking all that trash and the badass outfits, the robes, the hair, the persona, the swagger, Terry Bam Bam Gordy, the tough guy of the group, and, of course, Buddy Roberts. Everybody thought they could kick Buddy Roberts' ass, and he was a heat-seeking missile. And as a unit, those three guys, and Michael P.S. Hayes, one of the best promos in the history of the business, and no one ever seems to want to bring him up in a promo conversation, but that guy could talk a lot of trash, and then the Freebirds could go out there and back it up. So they could work into the building with what they did in the ring with their opponent, and then they could talk into the ring with the rap on the mic. And, of course, Michael P.S. Hayes leading the charge. And I tell you what, going back to the Mid-South Power Pro days, when I was finally starting to get them down there in Edna, Texas, when P.S. started doing color commentary with the one and only Jumpin' Jim Ross, the white meat babyface from Norman, Oklahoma, man, they made for a great 1-2 punch. And so I really loved Michael on the stick way back then. He was a great commentator. So anyway, it's surprising to me with the injuries that Michael P.S. Hayes had, what would have happened had he stayed in the business longer than he did? Because when he got out, as I talked to him at WrestleMania 30, a year ago, he left the business, man, in his, late 30s. So, he started early, but he finished fast. So if he got a couple more years out, it would have been interesting to see what he did. But anyway, Hall of Fame guys right there. And then, while I'm on tag teams, the Midnight Express. When are you going to put them in? You might as well put them in ASAP. That would be Dallas. Hey, man, why not make Dallas the kind of a tag team Hall of Fame type gimmick? Because you got the Midnight Express that's got to go in. You got the Fabulous Freebirds who got to go in. And you got the Rock and Roll Express who absolutely have to go in. And so those are three right off the top of my head, Don, and those were all tag teams. If I sit here and try to rack my brain about singles, I could come up with a couple as well, but I'm going to move on down the line. Those three tag teams, and certainly, man, they all had different kinds of runs. And, of course, Rock and Roll were, pretty much babyface their entire run. And, of course, Ricky Morton, white meat babyface, get the heat on him or double set of heat, start off on Robert, then shift it to Ricky. And, God dang, man, the fire that they had, the battles that they had with Arn and Ole Anderson and Arn and Tully Blanchard. And, man, Jesus Christ, who else did they have? Well, the Midnight Express. Those two feuding together with the Rock and Roll, that was money any way you put it. So, And then, of course, the Freebirds over at the Von Erichs, just badass stuff. Those three teams, those six guys, and obviously you've got to throw Mr. Jim Cornette in the Hall of Fame as well. One of the greatest announcers, one of the greatest trash talkers, nonstop gab guys I've ever heard in my life. That guy used to irritate me so much when he cut his promos. I would just like, man, anybody, somebody, do something to shut this guy up. And he was doing his job. He was getting heat for his guys, and that's what he did. And all of a sudden, man, he come out there with that loaded tennis racket. And he was a heat-seeking missile. And so, but one other thing, and when you talk about the Midnight Express, I didn't get a chance to see, I think, was it Pat Rose, who's one of the original members? But, I think you've got to go three members there with the Midnight Express. You got to go Loverboy Dennis Condrey, Beautiful Bobby, and Stan Lane. So that's a three-man induction for me because that's what I remember seeing. And, man, and it's hard to pick out of those two combinations. And I know Norvell Austin was in there earlier, but I didn't really see his work. But when you talk about that particular team, Loverboy Dennis, Beautiful Bobby and Sweet Stan Lane. And Stan Lane was awesome with Bobby, but Bobby was the glue. He was the common thread between both those teams because he was with both guys. But I just loved all of the work that those guys put together in whichever fashion that they tagged them up in. And, of course, Loverboy Dennis Connery went on and did some other things. But those guys go in, and I'll move on down the road and go to the next question. I appreciate it, Don. I always see you on Twitter. I appreciate you sending a question in. And here's a question that comes from Kurt. He says, Steve, hey, I'm a huge fan of the podcast. Now you've gotten my dad and I in the Broken Skull Challenge. So thanks for all you do. I'm a psychologist for a living, and I'm always interested in hearing about ring psychology. Can you expand on this topic a bit and how your psychology in the ring may differ from other top pro wrestlers? Thanks again, Kurt. Man, Kurt, really, psychology of a ring is a simple and complex discussion. The simple part of it is, psychology in a ring is what you do to elicit a response, and then based on that, pace your match, make your decisions into which direction you go. And so, in a traditional format of a match, you got a bad guy and a good guy. You're going to start wrestling, okay? We got a 10-minute match. This is the basic brass tacks. Babyface is going to shine, okay? That's just part of the match. Then the heel's going to cut him off, get a little bit of heat. And then the heel will get a couple of hope spots in there where the babyface almost able to get away, but always gets heeled back into heat. So the heel still beating up the babyface. And then finally something happens and the babyface Katie bar the door goes into a manic comeback and starts giving everything the heel gave him back to him. And then you go into, after the comeback, your finish, and you're going to have false finishes along the way. And either, the heel's going to go over with some heat by screwing the babyface, babyface win clean with his finish, or catch a quick one on the heel into a disqualification. Someone runs in. But the psychology comes in how you execute all these different facets of this match and shining up your guy. The way you call your high spots, the way you lay your match out, you get your basic template, but how you go about making your decisions in the ring is your psychology. And so, like, when you look at some of the 30, 60-minute matches, of course, that Ric Flair had way back in the day, and if you watched a kind of a standard, if I would use that word, Ric Flair match, a lot of times, they're going to start off. It's going to be paced, a little bit slower, but they're looking to go an hour. And when Ric Flair worked, it was always action-packed because the guy could go like nobody's business. And he'd usually start off on a different body part. He might start off working a headlock or an arm or something like that while he was trying to shine that baby face up and go into his initial heat. But you knew when he set into the heat on the leg that was that final real set of heat that he was going to work out of. So he's making decisions and, shining this guy up, listening to the crowd, keeping the babyface on top, cutting him off, getting on top himself, then slipping and letting that babyface come back out on top to keep shining him, and then ground down into that heat, going to the comeback. So psychology is all about manipulating the people, the crowd in attendance, listening to what they're giving you after you've done something, and making those decisions. I could talk about it forever and ever and ever. And again, going back to some of those long Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels matches, kind of the way they worked the crowd in a back and forth fashion. And when those guys were working, there was actually a little bit of heat between them, which was very interesting because you think in a work atmosphere, you got two guys that have a little heat between them. Oh man, this is going to be a good match. And not necessarily so, because there's cooperation in a match. And if one guy is mad at the other one, things might not actually turn out so good because one guy might get a little bit selfish. But when you talked about Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels, whatever the issues were between them, and they would be better left to tell you that than I would, but everybody knew there was a little bit of heat there. Both guys were, at the end of the day, and this before the Montreal Screwjob, the consummate pros and how they executed these matches, and they were all, 4 or 5 star kind of matches that, guys that quality of work, like they were, could pull off. So it's manipulating the crowd to answer your question, and everybody goes about it different. Mick Foley psychology is going to involve a lot of big bumps towards the back end of the match and maybe a shocker or two of a big bump in the early parts of the match. And, whereas another guy like Dean Malenko, the consummate, chain wrestler and man of 1,000 holds, is going to go out there and dazzle you. If he's working heel, he's going to let or position that babyface to out-wrestle him before he grounds down and gets the heat on him. So it's about telling your story within the framework of getting the guy over in the process of shine heat, comebacks, and then finish. It's how you put the pieces on the chess table. And, when you look at it for what it is, some guys out there that are having a match, it's always a very simple psychology. And my psychology wasn't necessarily overly complex, although I could get to a level of it. Many guys within the framework of that are playing checkers rather than chess. Some of those advanced guys, that were really telling great stories, could weave a whole lot of stuff in there and do amazing things. I kind of played a game that really, when I got to my zenith as Stone Cold Steve Austin, the formula was pretty simple. There was a guy out there who had the system working against him to keep him down and working with a damn good heel, and it was the basic, good guy versus bad guy match, and the crowd was living vicariously through the actions of Stone Cold. So, was I good in the ring? Yes, I was. Was I the best in the ring? No, I wasn't. Had a lot of fun telling those stories, and Vince stacking the card up against me through the psychology of booking that we translated with the psychology of work that we were doing in the ring, and we were selling tickets. And, dude, if you're into psychology, it's all about, go out and treat someone with kindness, and then the next day treat that same person with total disrespect. You'll get different reactions out of them depending on how you treat them. And so, a match does the same thing with respect to the performance and to what it does to, or how it affects the crowd that's watching. And when you see a lot of these guys go out there now, or at any point, and just do a wrestling match that's just a straight wrestling match, it can be interesting and it can be really good. But if you've got great psychology and you have these great characters that people are invested in and actually care about, and the guys are also selling and registering in the ring the things that are being done to them, so the crowd knows that this is, whatever this one guy's doing to the other guy hurts the other person. It's always bad when a guy goes out there and starts no-selling everything, because they think, and most time this is in the green stages, that I'm going to be the tough guy and I'm not going to sell anything. Here's the problem with being the green guy and thinking that you're tough and not selling anything. If nobody thinks you can be hurt, then they really don't care. Now, to a point, that's great. And when the Road Warriors first came out, there was a lot of that going on. But then, then they started selling it. First, they got over by not registering or selling hardly anything. And they, take a pile driver and just get right back up, no sell it, and go on offense. On one hand, that could kill you. On the other hand, they got it over. And when they were working with another high-powered tag team that was over, they'd sell like crazy for anybody. But you had to stay on them. And, and I've already kind of rambled into a whole different thing. But anyway, Psychology is doing what you do in the ring to get a response. Let me move on down the road. I enjoy talking about the wrestling business, but when I'm sitting here talking to myself, I start spinning off in these different tangents. It's hard to bring it back to zero. So I appreciate you sending in the question there, bro. Thanks, Kurt. Here's one. This is about WrestleMania 31 coming up in Santa Clara, California. It's rumored that Kevin Nash will be the headliner at the Hall of Fame this year. This is the one year I truly feel the deceased inductee should be the headliner. How do you feel about it, and do you have any other opinions on the Hall of Fame? Who should be inducted next year? Okay, that's Garrett from Minnesota. Well, let's don't even go into next year because it just went there with the other questions with Midnight Express, Rock and Roll Express, and the Freebirds. But let's talk about Kevin Nash being the headliner. Now, this was a rumor today on the Inquisitor. I'm looking at Inquisitor right now on my internet. So that was a story they kind of been teasing that Kevin Nash is that guy. So I'm not giving any spoilers. This is going to be on. This podcast drops Tuesday after Monday Night Raw, and I think we're going to find out if he's indeed going to be inducted tonight or not. I don't know. I haven't heard from Kevin. But what you're asking me is, it seems what you're asking me is, shouldn't Macho Man Randy Savage be the headliner and not Kevin Nash? Well, first of all, I think when Randy Savage goes in, that place is going to come unglued, because that's how big Randy's impact was on the business. And, of course, man, you know, I remember catching Randy Savage down at USWA when he could work his ass off down there, and that feud that he had with Jerry Lawler, man, that was like a shoot, you know, because that was when pro wrestling was still quote-unquote real, or I believed it to be real, you know, for the most part. You know what I'm saying? I always wanted to believe. I still want to believe. So all of a sudden, man, he gets in WWF, and Vince puts a rocket pack on his back and sends that guy to the moon, and he gets over, and he's one of the most intense competitors I've ever seen inside the squared circle. I got a chance to wrestle Randy Savage down in Orlando, Florida. I did a job for him, and in about a 4-minute match, it wasn't nothing. Man, they didn't have any ideas for me. I don't even remember the match. I'd have to watch it back, and we barely even talked. Went out there and did the favors for him. I wish I would have got a chance to work with Randy at his peak and at my peak, and that would have been some badass matches. So it's going to be haywire when they put him in, because everybody knows he should have been in a long time ago. And the thing about putting him in as the headliner, I think you want the headliner to be someone who can be present and to speak for themselves. Now, I say that with respect. I believe Hulk Hogan's going to introduce Randy into the Hall of Fame, but I'm thinking that it's going to be Randy's brother, Lanny Poffo, who will be receiving the ring and doing the acceptance speech for Randy Savage. And, of course, Lanny Poffo is very articulate, very eloquent, and it's a very special occasion for Randy Savage and the whole Poffo family. But I think in this case, you know, and it's going to be a feel-good moment that he's in. Everybody will love it, and it's time for him to go in the Hall of Fame. But I think in the best-case scenario, when you're going, you know, in front of a bunch of people, the best-case scenario is to have someone who is alive and present and can cut a promo and talk in their own right, and that's big, sexy Kevin Nash. And welcome, if it's him, you know, welcome to the Hall of Fame. We'll see. This podcast drops after Monday Night Raw. We'll find out tonight. But I think that's the thinking on that, Garrett. Have someone who's alive and present. And Kevin Nash, if he is the guy, he is alive and present, as this podcast is recorded. Good Lord willing, the creek don't rise. Nothing happens to Kevin Nash. We'll put the jinx on him. Anyway, here we go with another question. Hey, Steve, I was listening to the Danny Davis show. It was an amazing show. Was that Jerry the King Lawler he was talking about who paid him while he was not working during his back injury? And that question was from Michael. And, yeah, that was Jerry the King Lawler that Danny Davis was talking about that was giving him those payoffs when he hurt himself so bad in the ring. And here's the thing about that, because that was really back in the day. If you got hurt in the ring, dude, you did not get paid. Zero. I mean, if you didn't work, you weren't making money. And that's why guys, and I asked Danny on the podcast, you know, he was in there 10, 12, 15 years before I was, and guys are already, you know, kind of teaching themselves to be chiropractors And if a guy hurt his back, he tweaked his back or did this, that, or whatever, there'd be another guy there trying to work on him and, put his back into place. I told that story about Harley Race, fixing my back up for me or trying to fix my back up for me. And the guys have always been doing that for each other. But I tell you what, when I got dropped on my head in East Rutherford, New Jersey, in Meadowlands Arena, back in, 97? I guess it was. Whatever it was. I was a transient quadriplegic for about 60 seconds. I rang up a concussion, got taken to the hospital, tested negative on a broken neck, but bruised my spinal cord. I come out of the hospital, didn't have a ride back to my hotel room. 3 girls who had followed the ambulance to the hospital asked me if I needed a ride. I said yes. They took me to the liquor store, bought me a 12-pack of Budweiser, and dropped me off at my hotel room and made sure I got to my room. And I sat there and I drank 12 beers and concussed, in pain, and kind of in a weird place. Woke up the next day, went to the rent-a-car place, got me a rent-a-car, drove to Philly, and worked a Monday Night Raw angle and cut a promo with that little soft cervical collar on, and then went to my house. And for 3 months, when I didn't work, 4 months, however long it was, I didn't get paid. Didn't get any paychecks coming to the mail. And then when 2000 came along and I had to get my neck fused up, I was gone for a year. Didn't get no paychecks. I got royalty checks every 4 months, but I didn't get a weekly check. And I think finally when Triple H tore his quad and then when Kevin Nash tore his quad, I think that's when they started paying guys when they were injured. But back in the day, and this isn't a complaint, this is just telling you how it was back in the day, and this is going back to the question about you asking about Jerry Lawler having the book and paying Danny Davis. That was just showing the guy loyalty. But that's just how hard it is in the wrestling business. And for many years, I didn't carry any kind of insurance because it was so damn high. I really didn't want to pay for it. So I didn't have insurance pretty much my whole adult life because I figured anytime I got hurt in the ring, WWF would pay for the injury, and they did. They always paid for the injury. But before, the precedent was set that they pay you when you get hurt, you didn't even get paid when you got hurt. So you were just living on what you had saved up in the bank. And that always leads me to the next thing of what we used to call in the business wrestler's mentality. Back in the day, when you break into business and all the old timers, and like for me, when I broke into the business in Dallas, Texas, and I started making those drives from Dallas, Texas to all those small towns in Louisiana, and I didn't, I had a car I could have drove myself, didn't have any money. I'd stopped working on the freight dock, and Bronco, Lubitsch, and Skandar Akbar always travel together, and they said, hey, kid, you need a ride. And these were 2 of the veterans that were the nice guys that take a young punk kid like myself under their wing, and I'd ride to all the towns with them, and that's where I gathered up all my information. And then, of course, later, Gorgeous Gary Young and, all the other guys that I got psychology from. But to go back to the point I was going to try to make, wrestler's mentality is like running down the road with guys like Skandar and Bronco, and they'd always tell you, save your money, kid. Because you never know when it's going to run out. You never know when you're going to get hurt. You never know when something happens and you can't wrestle again. And so part of the wrestler's mentality was you saved up enough money, and when you bought your first house, you would buy it for cash. And I know today is a different day and age, and houses are a lot more expensive. But back in the day, that's what most of the guys did. You bought your first house with cash because if you ever got fired, if you ever got hurt, if you couldn't get another job, nobody could take your house from me. Same thing with a car. You pay cash for your car so that everything you owned outright. You didn't owe anybody any money because you never knew what was going to happen down the road. So anyway, Danny Davis got taken care of. He expressed his gratitude to Jerry the King Lawler. That was a stand-up thing for Jerry to do way back in the day. And once again, I'm not sitting here pissing and moaning about not getting paid when I had my neck fused up. That's the system, the way it was back then. There's a whole different system right now, and that's just the way it is. I think the guys and gals today have great medical care. They're being paid attention to. They got trainers traveling up and down the road with them, and they got all their medical bills covered. And, hey, man, the wrestling business is a rough business. All the time on the road, all the bumps in the ring, it all adds up, but they're in good hands, and it's a good system these days. All right, with that last question being asked, let's go ahead and we'll take a pause for the calls right now and take a word for our sponsors, the people who keep this show on the air for free. I'm coming right back to answer some more of your questions you sent to questions@steveaustenshow.com.
You're listening to another classic episode of The Steve Austin Show, only on PodcastOne.
All right, gang, we're rolling sound again. Let's get back to the questions you all sent in to questions@steveaustenshow.com. And, hey, man, anytime you want to email me, I try to read every single email that comes to the show. And predominantly I get wrestling-related questions. If you want to keep hearing me answer them, keep sending them. If you want to talk about something else, make a suggestion that I can put out on my Twitter account, send it to me at questions@steveaustenshow.com. I love talking about pro wrestling. I can talk about it every day if that's what you want. But if you've got any suggestions on some subject matter that you want me to cover, send it to questions@steveaustenshow.com. We can flip a few pages and cover some different material. How's that for audio whoop-ass at your demand? That being said, let's move back into a wrestling-related question, and one that was a heavy-duty thing, talking about WrestleMania 17, coming from James in Raleigh, North Carolina, a good neck of the woods. I always liked wrestling over in Raleigh, some good wrestling country down there. And he said, hey, Steve, I was wondering if you could talk a little about the sit-down interview that aired on SmackDown before WrestleMania 17. We're coming up on the 14th anniversary of that show, and I consider the promo you guys did before that match to be one of the best sellings of a single match in WWE history. How much was scripted and how much was ad-libbed? The seriousness and intensity in that room is what lacks in the product today. Okay, James, let me tell you something. That was an awesome piece of business, and if I'm not mistaken, I believe that was my idea. And I'm not taking credit for the whole damn thing, but I think it was my idea. And there was nothing scripted about it. Now, Jim Ross probably had a couple of questions written down, but, man, as a moderator, no one can ask questions as good as Jim Ross can. And, of course, you know, he was right there really, you know, in his prime in the WWE and totally entrenched. And, you know, in my opinion, he's the greatest announcer and wrestling announcer in the history of the business. And, you know, as great as Gordon Soley was, he just took it, you know, to the next level. He had that extra gear. And this is with all due respect to Lance Russell and Bob Caudle and so many other great ones, but Jim Ross is the best. And, man, you could cut the tension in that room with a knife, and it was real, and there was nothing scripted about it. I didn't know what The Rock was going to say. He didn't know what I was going to say, and we just responded off each other accordingly and answered Jim's questions. And it was a shoot. And the thing about it is with The Rock, you know, for whatever reason it was, you know, he had great chemistry with a lot of other people, and so did I. But the two of us together were just very dynamic, very competitive. He was trying to be number one. I was number one, and he came close to overtaking me. In my opinion, never did. But he was white hot. He had a monster career. He's the biggest movie star in Hollywood right now. But if you go back to 17 and you go to that promo, that was real deal Holyfield, competitive aspect of professional wrestling, the way it could and should and still be doing today, done. And that's all I can say about that. It was real all the way. And if you go back to the interview that I did with CM Punk on the 2K14 video game release, and that was moderated once again by my old buddy, Jumpin' Jim Ross. And you could cut the tension in that room with the knife because, I mean, you know, me and Punk were taking care of each other, but that was a real deal, man. We're trying to sell video games for 2K14, but also that fantasy matchup between Stone Cold and CM Punk. And, you know, CM Punk's got a hell of a presence, and he's got a hell of a damn promo. And same thing with me, sitting there in my leg brace, just had an ACL and a PCL put in my left knee. Man, those pieces of business are fun. And that's the way I want to see pro wrestling presented, because people always want to believe. and I want to believe. And when I'm doing it, I'm living it, and I'm believing it. So to answer your question, man, wasn't no script. It was two cats in there who were in their prime, knew their place, knew what they were there to do, and that was sell tickets. Same thing with me and Punk on the 2K14 thing. You know, we were all there to do business, and so was Jim Ross, the way he presented the questions and went accordingly back and forth to each guy in the serious tone in which he asked the questions, man. So real deal, Holyfield, that's how you sell tickets. That's how you get people to believe in you and your brand and your product. All right, here we go. Let's move on down the road and get another question. Hey, Steve, first question I have is, what do you think of Paul Heyman's last two promos? I personally think they made the whole show. His promos keep getting better, and I think they need to let him teach the locker room just to do promos. Second question is, on your leg days at the gym, do you do any other workouts? For example, on days I do chest, I'll do tries or back and buys. This is from James. Hey, James, let's talk about Paul Heyman. You know, I was on YouTube a while back, and I was looking at some of the stuff Paul Lee did back in his Continental Wrestling days, and the dude has simply progressed from being a really, really good talker back then into a guy that every time they put him up to plate to knock a promo out of the park, the bases are loaded and he hits a grand slam. Man, the thought process, the way he delivers this stuff, the timing, the fact that he never stutters, you know, babbles or bobbles or does anything. The other day when the microphone stopped working, you know, and he just kind of ad-libbed and, you know, kind of made a snide remark toward Lillian. Dude, man, that promo right there, and that was about 2 weeks ago, was just – I sent him a text message. I said, that might have been your best promo you've ever done. And the next one he followed up and talking about Roman Reigns' family. I thought that was an awesome promo as well. I like that first one better. But, man, that guy lights up a microphone like nobody else has. And when he goes out there, I'm glued to the damn TV. I'll turn the television up. I'll make sure everything's quiet so I can listen to what he's saying, listen to how he's presenting it, and whether it's that straightforward fashion or if he's setting the different levels and weaving in all these other things and going back to bring back a point home and sell the match. The dude's an absolute monster on the microphone. And then, you know, if you talk to Paul Lee, dude, that's what he was born to do. He's a thinking man, and he's a smart dude, and he knows how to convey a message and sell a ticket. Premier promos by one of the best promo guys that will ever pick up a microphone. And I certainly, I mean, because there's different kind of talkers. You know, there was my style of promo, which is about getting people in a building, but the way he does it, what he does, you know, he is the best, and he's just an unbelievable guy. And the thing about it is, he was able not just to cut a promo, because there's a lot of guys who can teach you how to do something, but they're not really the best at it. Paul Lee is the best at it, and he's taught I don't know how many individuals, and I always give him credit for helping me with my promos, and I don't know how many other people will, you know, give him credit. I know Mick will, Shane Douglas, Raven. I mean, I'm going to leave out a lot of guys here because I'm just talking off the top of my head. But he influenced so many guys, it's unbelievable. And so just having him in that locker room, and, man, if I'm backstage watching a monitor and I'm new in the business and I want to learn how to cut a promo, and it's just like watching it on TV, but the closer you are to it, the more I think it rubs in. And just to walk around with the guy, talk to him a little bit, see, you know, the gear spinning his head while he's talking to you, man, that's just like being able to get under the learning tree of a tried and true veteran as you go down the road. And I know all the travel system has changed these days. I know Paulie's not exactly on the road, but, you know, most of the knowledge you picked up was with hanging around these guys and asking them questions and spending time with them, and almost osmosis. So, man, if I was a young cat, I'd be trying to, you know, get a little bit of Paul's time here or there at catering or whatever. I'm sure the guy's in total demand because if you're not barking up his tree trying to ask for some advice or help on this, that, or whatever, you know, you're doing yourself a disservice as far as trying to be a good talker or a personality in the business. I don't know how busy Paul is at a television taping or what they have him doing. I'm not certainly trying to put a workload on him. I'm just saying, dude, as long as that guy can run his mouth, he should have a job because, Guys like him, you don't just find, first of all, you don't just find top draws in the business every day. You also don't find people that can talk and do the things that he does every day. So he's as rare as a top draw, in my opinion. He's a badass dude, and I've loved all of his promos. Let me get back to your question. The second part was, when you're training legs at the gym, do you do any other workouts? No, man, dude. Here's the thing. I used to love training legs when I came out of college. Right before I got into the business, I was a squatting machine. Legs are probably my best body part back in the day. And then I got in the wrestling business and started having all those knee issues. Tore my ACL, tore my PCL on my left knee, tore my PCL on my right knee. I stopped squatting. Hell, I hadn't squatted for 15 or 20 years during my whole wrestling career. Every now and then, I'd string together a couple of leg workouts where I'd squat a $135 or do some leg presses. But really, truly stopped training legs for 15 to 20 years. So I just started training my legs again. I just started squatting medium heavy. And, man, when I train legs, that's all I do. And what I just recently really got a hold of, because I've been hanging out with all these badass athletes over at the Broken Skull Challenge, and I've been looking at a lot of the workouts of the day and some of the movements and exercises that they do. And I started front squatting. Out of all of my leg days, out of all the days, I'd pack on all that iron and put on my back and go up and down and do heavy leg presses. But the squat was the Mac Daddy. What I've delved into from looking at some of the CrossFit routines call for thrusters. And that's basically, a front squat, into a military press and then back down again. I'm not doing a military press. I'm not doing a thruster, but I'm doing that front squat where you're holding that Olympic bar in front of you rather than resting it on your traps of your back. Let me tell you something, mister. You talk about a whole different dynamic. Man, I started off, and I always start off my leg workouts with the squat, but I changed it up this time. I did a bunch of pump sets with the leg press, worked up to about 5 or 6 wheels on each side, pumping out 30 reps. And then went over and started front squatting, and not a whole lot of weight. I think I went up to a $135, but because it was a different movement and because it pulls on a different part of your back, the way you're balancing that weight when you go down, it's a whole shocker. Man, I've been working out since I was 10 years old, and that's the first time I've ever really done a front squat and was serious about it and went through a workout. It jacked my heart rate up. It messed up my quads in a good way, and got a massive pump. And then I did stiff-legged deadlifts for hamstrings, and then I got back on the leg press machine and did calf raises because we don't have a stand-up calf raise machine at the gym. And that was my leg workout. It was leg presses, front squats, stiff-legged deadlifts, and calf raises on a seated leg press. And I didn't do anything else. I was about to puke, and I was breathing so hard from doing the high reps on those front squats, it blew me out of the gym. So on other days, I'm training chest and tris. On back days, I train specifically back, and I train bis with shoulders. And to answer your question about the workouts, and again, man, I ain't no bodybuilder, but I'm just doing the things that I do to stay in shape, and I'm trying to get in better shape in the hopes that we're going to film a Broken Skull Challenge number 3. And hanging out with those athletes has definitely kind of helped me tweak some of the training methodologies I use and inspired me to maybe use a little bit less weight but shoot for more reps in a specific amount of time and throw in that conditioning factor that you get instead of taking so long between sets. But anyway, swig of protein to the CrossFitters and swig of protein to all the men and women on the Broken Skull Challenge who have inspired my training to pick up the intensity. Let's move on down to the next question. Hey, Steve, I just turned 21 last week, and I've been trying out different types of beer, legally now. I have been a fan so far of hard ciders and light beers, although not a fan of IPAs and Ls. What type of beer is your favorite, and what should I try next? Well, and that's John from over there in O'Fallon, Missouri. Hopefully, John, you're safe from all that stuff that's been going on over in Missouri. Man, some chaotic times over there. Here's the deal. You just turned 21. You're trying out different types of beer. Hey, man, you're 21. Don't go crazy on the beer. Try them out and never drink and drive. Here's the thing. Hey, man, I've never been really a hard cider guy. I don't think I've ever even drank one. Of course, with respect to light beers, man, that's what I've been drinking for years and years and years. And way back in the day, from Natural Light, Coors Light, Miller Light, Bud Light, and a little bit of Budweiser, tossed them in a ring there for a while. But I started getting into the craft beers about a year and a half ago, and I started with the pale ales. And I was just looking for something that was a little bit different than what I drank all those years, and something with a little bit more flavor to it. And so I started with the pale ales, and then I started kind of getting to the beers that are just a little bit more hoppy. And I tried my first IPA, and it turned me off because I wasn't ready for all the hops yet. And so a lot of times when I get on this podcast, I talk about IPAs, people just jump off their Bud Light, Miller Light, whatever, and go jump on a heavy-duty IPA, which is probably double the strength in alcohol, but of course hoppy to the nth degree, and it tastes like someone just crapped in their mouth because they're not ready for all those hops. So it was about a 6 to 8 month swing as I graduated to the IPA flavor to get acclimated to the hops. So now, man, I don't dig light beer at all. I'm into the hops. I love IPAs. I'm not into, when I go to England or wherever, I like a Guinness Stout or a Murphy's. I think it's some badass, really, really good beer, and I've used to drink a ton of them with my old travel partner, William Regal. But I'm an IPA guy now just because I got into the hoppy flavors. And if I drink a normal beer, it just don't feel normal. We'll go over to the sushi restaurant that's right down the road from my house, and I'll drink an Asahi or a Kirin Light because those are the Japanese beers that they carry over there, and they don't carry an IPA. And quite frankly, those two beers, the Asahi and the Kirin Light, are so light, and they're good beers. No, don't get me wrong. And they really, really go with the sushi, so they complement it. But, it's hard for me to go anywhere, and if they don't have an IPA on draft or they don't have an IPA on in a bottle, I'll find another restaurant and go eat somewhere else, or I just won't drink a beer at all. But anyway, hey, take your time. The IPA thing is not the be-all, end-all. It's not the holy grail of beers. Beer is subjective, just like your taste in cars, music, your favorite color. What's good to you might be bad to someone else. And what's bad to you might be good to someone else. So take your time with the beer. Don't get in a hurry. You got a long ways to try a lot of other beers out. And don't drink and drive, and don't get in the car with anybody that's ever drunk and drive. So be careful out there, and don't rush things. Everything in moderation. Good luck to you in your quest to find your favorite beer. Be responsible. All right, let's move on to the next question. Hey, Steve, I've been a huge fan of yours for years. I'm not sure if you've ever answered this or not. When you were a heel around the Invasion Angle time period, you were giving out a lot of hugs to people. I had heard that was a rib on DDP. Any truth to that? If not, where did that come from? Thanks. That comes from John over there in O'Fallon, Missouri. John, answer your question. The hugs was my idea, just to do something to embrace Vince McMahon rather than detest him and repel him because, I had switched heel. So it wasn't a rib on DDP at all. Man, DDP's one of my best friends, and I'll rib a guy every now and then, but you can't rib a guy, and take a valuable TV time just doing it. That was a total personality flip from a guy who would give the stiff arm to the authority figure, which was Vince McMahon, the owner of the company, and I was, the toughest SOB who rebelled against authority. Now I was embracing him. So that was the reason that I was hugging Vince. Didn't have anything to do with the rib on DDP. But anyway, I got the names messed up on who all sent those questions on those last two questions because my notes are jumbled up here. But nonetheless, I appreciate you sending in that question.
You're listening to another classic episode of The Steve Austin Show, only on PodcastOne.
All right, here we go, Steve. My wife isn't the biggest fan of wrestling, but her and I are big fans of the Broken Skull Challenge, and I have a question regarding the show. What is the taping schedule for the show like? For example, do you tape all the challenges first on day 1 and then all of the Skullbusters on day 2? I always like to hear about the behind the scenes of creating a television show. Thank you for reading. This is from Brian in Azusa, California. Brian, man, I tell you what, that Broken Skull Challenge is exactly what I say on TV it is. We start off that first morning with 8 men or women, and it's a long-ass day, and sometimes it's hotter than hell, sometimes it's cold as hell. The weather can change from one to the other in a heartbeat out there where we film. Most of the time, it's an extreme. Usually, it's never very comfortable, and it feels like you're standing in a sandblaster all day with all the sand blowing around out there. So it's a long day. And I tell those competitors, the longer you're here, the longer the day is going to be. So keep yourself hydrated. If you need to take a bathroom break, go take your bathroom break. But always be ready because, by the time, I introduce a challenge, we've got to do interviews. And it takes you a little bit of time to get warmed up again. So these athletes are going from hurry up and wait to let's go right now to wait. And it's your time to go right now. So you've always got to be ready out there on the Broken Skull Challenge. And then at the end of the day, and most of the time the sun's going down, when that winner is declared after the pit, and we walk off into the sunset, the next day at sunrise, that competitor who won, who sent 7 people stepping off the ranch, comes back, and we lay out the obstacle course. I explain the course to them in detail. They do all the filming, and all of a sudden we say, ready, set, go. And that person takes off, picks up that log at the backbreaker. I fire up my UTV, and off we go. It's to the race. The Skullbuster is on. And so it takes a long time to get all that done. You've got to prep the course, clear all the tracks out, drag it, and get the sand looking good, get it ready to present for television, get all your cameras fired up, and get everybody synced up, and then it's ready, set, go. So it's very long days of filming. It's very fun. The good thing about it is I'm going to rent a house out there this time that has better Wi-Fi because it takes too long to send my podcast. But I stay in a really badass trailer on set the entire time we're filming that show. I'll go home on the weekends. Now, I only live 50 miles from Agua Dulce, but if I was to get up to make my call time in the morning and have to fight that rush hour traffic, I'm not going to be worth a damn because I'm not going to be able to be up to speed with, what the challenges are, be settled in and ready to go. So I live on set. And then at the end of the day, I don't have to get back in my truck with Hershey the Wonder Dog, who stays in the trailer with me, and drive back in traffic and take 2.5, 3 hours to get home. So that whole filming process is fun for me. And like I explained to the competitors, it's a long-ass day. But for me, it's like a paid vacation because I've got these badass, I got a four-wheeler out there. I'm going to have my dirt bike out there this year. I'm going to have a UTV out there this year. When the sun goes down and we stop filming, I feed Hershey, and we go down Skullbuster Valley, and we go through that course, and we just go on our walk, and I'll walk up and down those some of the hills that we do those challenges up on. I never go up and down Heartbreak Hill because it's so steep, and I'm just doing my leisurely walk. But that one hill that you see us operating on a lot of the time is one me and Hershey will walk up and down on our walk. And then right above that ridge, there's a landing strip over there for the bi-wing airplanes. The Agua Dulce Airport is down the road, but there's room up there for a small crop duster type airplane to land, or for like a fire emergency or something like that. So we'll walk all up in there. When I get down to Skullbuster Valley, I don't have telephone reception, but when I get on top of that ridge, a lot of times I'll have my headphones on, and that's where I'll finish up my nightly calls for the evening, check in, and see what's going on everywhere, and then I'll go back and start doing a podcast or looking at my notes for the next day. But it's an intense period of time out there. It's hotter than hell. It's cold as hell. The wind is always blowing. But when the sun goes down out there, it's so damn peaceful. It's unbelievable. And those mountains, those hills out there, there's a lot of history about the Vasquez rocks and all of the stuff that used to go on out there. It's a wonderful place to film, and so hopefully we'll be out there again, filming the baddest, toughest, coolest show on television, the Broken Skull Challenge for country music television. Let's move on down the road. I got a question from Adam Gallant. He says, Steve, my question is, how did you pick Mark Eaton to be the official Steve Weiser thrower? Was he a legend outside the arena for handing out beers? And did his ability to throw from the timekeeper's area to the ring and sometimes as far away as halfway up the ramp just develop naturally over the time? Man, I'll tell you what, Adam, Mark Eaton had a hell of an arm on him. I can't remember when we first started using that beer. And so Mark started throwing them, and there's very few beers that I really ever dropped. If I could have been a wide receiver or a tight end in the NFL, if I would have had that catch-to-drop ratio, I'd be in the Hall of Fame right there with Jerry Rice. But we developed a chemistry, and Mark had a throwing style, and it was an underhand lob, and almost 99% of them were an underhand lob. And he could throw a beer for a mile, and he had just the perfect touch and the perfect arc on it. And some of the times, man, when we started really pushing the envelope and I started getting up that ramp and he was going to have to throw over the crowd, I'd say, give me a damn beer. And he'd kind of give me that sideways, not like saying no, but he'd shake his head one time like, man, that's kind of a precarious position. And I'd go ahead and just reaffirm that I wanted that beer, and he'd just let it fly and uncork one, and sure enough, it'd fall right into my hands. And I don't think we ever hit anybody in the head with a beer. All the beers, damn near every single beer he threw was within catching distance of my hands. So I don't know how Mark Eaton got picked to do that job. It was because he was the official timekeeper. I guess it was just deemed that he also had the ability to multitask and throw beers while he was keeping time. But he was awesome at his job. We had so many times where we would go back and start laughing at some of the throws or what happened while all the action was going down. But I had a good time with Mark Eaton, and he was awesome at his job. And, I know he's gone from WWE right now. I guess he still has his Twitter account, WWE Timekeeper on Twitter, and you can send him a tweet over there. But he's a good dude, and I really enjoyed working with him. And with that being said, let's move on to one more wrestling question. And it says, hey, Steve, my question is, how would you book The Undertaker versus Bray Wyatt at WrestleMania, and who goes over? Does Taker take another loss, or does he take a victory? If Bray loses, does this actually do him more damage than good? He should have gone over against Cena in WrestleMania 30. Well, I don't know that he should have went over Cena at WrestleMania 30, but okay, let's talk about Undertaker versus Bray Wyatt at WrestleMania. Who goes over? Man, that's a good question. Me, I think Taker has to go over. You're bringing the dead man back. Last time people saw him, it was in a loss to the man who conquers, whatever. Paul Heyman's always talking about Brock Lesnar. And, man, again, I was that guy who said the streak should never be broken. But if anybody was going to break the streak, they picked the right guy with Brock Lesnar. But to bring him back, if The Undertaker does indeed come back, I think you got to go over. And I think it's the rub that benefits Bray Wyatt. And, if Bray Wyatt goes over, then you bring that back to SummerSlam, where he's going to return the favor back to Undertaker. But I'm just not feeling an Undertaker loss on back-to-back Manias. I just think that takes away from how special his run was. And even though I was for staying undefeated, the fact that he got the one loss means I especially don't want to see him take two losses back-to-back unless, hey, man, it was his idea, he's down for it, and he wants to prep this guy up. But I don't see that being the case. And I'm not speaking for Mark. I'm not speaking for Bray. This is a question sent to questions@steveaustenshow.com. And the rub, the experience of being in there with a high-profile superstar, and when I say superstar, I mean true superstar, not superstar just because that's what they call you. You're talking about one of the true icons in the history of pro wrestling, The fact that you're in there with that dude, giving and taking, and you got to work at his pace, which is a monster because that dude's a big man and he sells on the run. You've always got to stay on him. He'll sell for you, but once you get him down, it's hard work to keep him down. So you're going to earn whatever you get against Undertaker, and he'll make you earn it. And and that's total respect, and that's how you should work. Mark's a smart guy. Nobody could have done the Undertaker gimmick like him. End of story. Bray Wyatt's got a great young character with what he's doing. It'd be awesome to see those two guys in the ring. And I'm staying tuned. I'll be watching Monday Night Raw tonight to see how the story keeps on unfolding as the WWE keeps heading towards WrestleMania 31. And it's funny because they just keep, that big WrestleMania sign on there with the play button on it. And I guess that's for the WWE Network. But they don't call it WrestleMania 31. Last year was WrestleMania 30. Now it's just WrestleMania. And I guess I get that from a marketing standpoint. Now it's just that special time of year where it's WrestleMania and you ain't got to call it a specific number. But anyway, I just thought I'd kind of ramble about that. I ain't going to get hot about it. Anyway, hey, a couple more questions. We're going to wrap this thing up. I'm going to come back with my word of the day. Hey, Steve, greetings from Uvalde, Texas. Uvalde, Texas, right down the road from the Broken Skull. Have you ever experienced anything paranormal? I've seen and experienced a lot of strange things in my home. I think it'd be cool if you told us any experiences of your own. Raymond D. Raymond, I ain't experienced nothing paranormal. I don't believe in ghosts. I ain't never seen a ghost. I believe in UFOs, but in ghosts, I don't believe in them. I ain't never seen one. And, man, I think there's other people out there than us. I don't know about like Martians, green Martians and stuff like that. I think there's got to be another world out there with some people on it because we can't be the only people here in the damn universe. We got Earth. Man, I'm not sure that man ever really walked on the moon because if we ever walked on the moon, how come we ain't been back? And some of those pictures, man, some was up at that flag because I don't think the wind was supposed to be blowing that day, but the wind was blowing in the picture. And I don't know, man. If we went to and this is off the subject because you asked me about the paranormal, I just started rambling. But anyway, no, man, I don't believe in the paranormal. And again, I don't know if we've been to the moon or not because if we've been there, how come we have not been back? Here's another question. Hey, Steve, if the zombie apocalypse went down, what 3 wrestlers would you want with you to take on the undead? Also, what gun would you use? Man, I tell you what, I've been watching The Walking Dead. And I'm on season 5, and I'm completely caught up. And I've been watching, and man, I tell you what, Michonne is one of my favorite characters. She ain't even got a gun. She'll use a gun every now and then, but she got that samurai blade. So I'm not even sure you need a gun. So if I could, Michonne wasn't in the wrestling. Well, Michonne wasn't in the wrestling business, so I can't take her with me. So let me go back to the boys. Okay, I'm going to have Brock Lesnar. Come on, look at the guy. That dude's a freak of nature. He could kill a damn zombie just by looking at it. So Brock Lesnar, and then you got to have Haku or Ming. And then, because, man, I mean, everybody knows how tough that guy was. And he's a very unassuming guy. He'll act like he's not tough. And then I think you got to have Ric Flair. And you got to have Ric Flair because I always give Rick credit for being one of the toughest guys in the history of the business, and not from an aspect of fighting, but because the dude could party all night, go out and wrestle an hour every single night, get tossed off the top turnbuckle I don't know how many times, get hip tossed, build across the damn ring, do that flip over the turnbuckle, land on the floor, gig himself, get color, and just put on a damn show every single night. So just for giggles, you got to have Brock Lesnar, Haku / Ming, and the Nature Boy Ric Flair. Plus, he could chop all the zombies and yell woo every time he did it. So those would be the 3 guys that I would pick. And again, Ric Flair is for entertainment purposes only. He's still one of the toughest human beings I've ever met in my life. And he's, in my opinion, the greatest pro wrestler who ever lived. And I tell you what, speaking of him, look at his damn daughter, Charlotte, the kind of wave she's making down there in NXT. She wrestles like a pro wrestler. That kid's got a very bright future in front of her. And I didn't think she was going to be in the wrestling business for a long time. But swig of water to her and to the other gals down there at NXT as well, because those gals down there have been having some really, really impressive matches. And I think the last NXT I watched, as a matter of fact, it was Charlotte and Sasha Banks were the main event. So, hey man, get some main event buzz down there. That's how those girls been mixing it up, and Bailey and the other girls down there have been kicking ass. So anyway, swig of water for all them gals down there, and those would be my three guys. And again, Ric Flair for the entertainment factor. Let's wrap this thing up. Steve, I was just wondering what kind of music the Texas Rattlesnake listens to. I know your themes have been more heavier, but are you usually into rock and metal? Chris. Man, lately I've been going back to some old blues stuff. Man, I think I was listening to Robin Ford the other day. I just started getting into Joe Bonamassa. If I said his name wrong, I'm just getting into him. I started getting into a little bit of Albert Collins the other day because I'm such a huge Stevie Ray Vaughan fan, and I was listening to Roy Buchanan and Albert Collins and Lonnie Mack when they played at Carnegie Hall. So I've really been kind of digging the blues, and if I mentioned anybody's name wrong, that's why, because I'm a huge Stevie guy, and those other guys have been checking out. And of course, you know, B.B. King and guys like that. And of course, man, I've always been a big Robert Cray fan, and I haven't heard a lot out of Robert Cray, but I'm a huge Robert Cray fan. And you know, not too long ago, I had Peter Rosenberg on, who's a big hip hop guy. There's not a whole lot out there that I'm really grabbing to. I was like into, you know, old Cameo, Confunction kind of stuff way back in the day. Heat Wave. Oh, man. Brothers Johnson. But these days, music has changed so much. And being a big Boston fan, Scorpions, Y&T, Great White, those bands don't exist anymore. So I kind of just went back to the blues, and that's where I've been at. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm fixing to go on my cardio and hook on my heart rate monitor that I fixed with Crazy Glue, and I'm going to be cranking out. That'll go straight back to late 80s, and it'll be on Pandora, and it'll be Iron Maiden radio. Now, I'm fixing to go out into the garage and use my my bicycle I got out there for my cardio, and I'm going to put on my heart rate monitor that I fixed with Crazy Glue, and I got my Bluetooth speaker out there, and I'll have Pandora radio on, and for the most part, when I'm listening out there, it's on Iron Maiden radio, Scorpions radio, or Great White radio, and for the most part, the Iron Maiden stuff, because they play a little bit more upbeat stuff, and especially when those twin guitars get going, I really dig that, and Bruce Dickinson lays down those vocals. It's easy to get your heart rate up to about 135 when you listen to Maiden sing. And don't get me wrong, if I'm going absolutely crazy out there, I'll put it on Slayer radio. But to answer your questions, I've been going back to some of the blues and listening to a bunch of the guys that I never really listened to other than Stevie Ray. But anyway, hey man, is your Android smartphone running slower these days? Are you running out of memory for stuff like pictures, videos, and emails? Sounds like you need to get yourself AVG Cleaner. AVG Cleaner is a free app that you can download right now from Google Play. It not only cleans all the hidden junk from your phone, it also helps give you longer battery life. And like I said, it does all that for free. Just download AVG Cleaner from Google Play, and when you launch it, you'll see a really simple screen that shows you how much space is left on your phone and how much space you can get back. Once you launch the app, you can do all kinds of stuff. You can clean up hidden junk with just one tap. You can sort your apps by how often you use them, how much your battery life they use, how much mobile data they use, or by how much space they take up on your phone. And then you can delete any apps that aren't worth keeping. You can get quick all-in-one access to your Wi-Fi and Bluetooth settings so you can turn off anything draining your battery. And you can turn on the auto-clean function, and AVG Cleaner will do all the work for you. Just tell it what you want removed, and it will clean up junk for you on a daily or weekly basis automatically. Just set it and forget it, people. And did I tell you, the AVG Cleaner app does all of this for free. And y'all know how much I like free. So go to Google Play and search for AVG Cleaner. Then download it and use it. Your Android phone or tablet will be cleaner and running more smoothly in no time. AVG Cleaner. Download it now for free at Google Play. That's AVG Cleaner. All right, gang, it's time to bring this podcast to a close or giving me the go-home cue. And that actually is the word of the day. I'm giving you a professional wrestling term. Go home is when you execute the finish of a match, or when someone gives you a cue to go home, it's time to execute the finish of the match. For whatever reason it is, whether it's a live TV thing and they're out of time and you must go home immediately because they've got something else to go in the show, that is when it's time to end the match. So when I say they're giving me the go-home cue, that reminds me of my WCW matches way back in the day when Grizzly Smith was one of the road agents on the show. Sometime if a match was running a little bit long at one of the house shows, the signal for someone to go home was when Grizzly Smith would approach the ring and he would casually reach down and just kind of flip his tie a few times, and that was giving you the signal. When Grizz went down to the ring and flipped his tie, it was time to go home. And then sometimes, Grizz didn't even have to flip his tie. When you saw Grizz at ringside, you knew it was time to go home and get to your finish of your match so the other matches could go in. And so go home is your word of the day, and that's what you guys are hearing when I say to give me the go home cue. That means it's the finish of the shirt. And with that being said, hey, man, once again, I want to say thank you very much to the athletes that came down to the Broken Skull Challenge this year for Season 2. It's just unprecedented badassness out there at the Broken Skull Ranch. I got 3 new T-shirt designs coming up on ProWrestlingTees.com and BrokenSkullRanch.com. One is available right now. It's the Good Luck Horseshoe shirt with the skull, which is probably one of the baddest, coolest designs out of all of them. And that and 2 others that were designed by Joe Romero coming up. And you can get them all at ProWrestlingTees.com and BrokenSkullRanch.com. And now, by popular demand, y'all been wanting something to keep your beers cold and your hands warm. I got koozies, and you can get a 6-pack of them things for $19.99, or add on a koozie to your shirt order for $3.99. But anyway, enough about all that BS. I want to say thank you very much for making this show a success and helping a brother out every week by hitting the download button 2 times, once on Tuesdays for the family-friendly show and once every Thursday for the Unleashed show. And if you're digging what you're hearing, tell all your friends about the show and tell a couple of buddies about it, because it's word-of-mouth, grassroots advertising, and tell them to hit the subscribe button too. But you got to subscribe to both shows, Tuesday and Thursday. That way you'll never miss an episode. And, it takes money to keep both shows going. I'm not asking for you to send me no donations. What I'm asking you to do, if you're going to do some shopping on Amazon, use my Amazon links. That helps us out. That helps us pay the production costs to get these shows out. And the best way to do that is go to PodcastOne.com, click on the Keep Our Podcast Free banner, and then click on the Steve Austin Show. You're going to find the Amazon links for Canada, the UK, and the United States. Bookmark those so that when you do some shopping on Amazon, if you want to support the show, you click one time and you're there to do your shopping. Amazon does not charge any extra, ain't no hidden charges, nothing like that. They just kick back a small percentage of the sale to help us with our production costs. And that's how we're able to provide both of these shows along with all of the other PodcastOne programming to download for free by supporting whatever podcast you listen to, digging on their Amazon links. But anyway, I'm fixing to jump on my little exercise bike. I had a heavy leg day yesterday. I have a day off in the gym, so it'll be an hour of cardio, spent at about 125 to 130 beats per minute, trying to burn some fat. In there on my bike, listening to my Bluetooth speaker, wearing my heart rate monitor that I fixed with crazy glue. Multitasking. The man at the house can do it all. Crazy glue, duct tape, and baling wire. You can use those 3 things to fix damn near anything in life. Folks, until next time, my name is Steve Austin, and I will catch your ass down the road.
This has been a PodcastOne production. Download new episodes of The Steve Austin Show every Tuesday at PodcastOne.com. That's PodcastOne.com.
All month long on Pluto TV, stream the biggest Tyler Perry movies free. Watch your favorites like Medea's Witness Protection and Medea's Big Happy Family. Join Tyler Perry as he goes on a couples retreat with Sharon Leal in Why Did I Get Married? Or Idris Elba and Gabrielle Union in the Tyler Perry directed film Daddy's Little Girls. Plus, Pluto TV has hundreds of channels with thousands more movies and TV shows. Available on live and on demand. Download the free Pluto TV app on all your favorite devices and start streaming now. Pluto TV. Drop in, watch free.
Hey, Friday Night Lights fans! It's Not Only Football, Friday Night Lights and Beyond is an episode-by-episode discussion of the hit TV series Friday Night Lights, hosted by yours truly, Scott Porter, who played Jason Street on the show, and my two wonderful co-hosts.
Me, Zach Guilford, a.k.a. Matt Saracen.
And me, Mae Whitman, a.k.a. someone who wasn't on the show but really, really loves it a lot.
We will also bring on some special guests, answer your questions, and tell you about what's going on in our lives today.
It's Not Only Football. Friday Night Lights and Beyond is available now wherever you get your favorite podcasts.
Clear eyes, full hearts, can't lose!